She is sure. She is sure. She is strong. She is strong. She is true. She is true. She is brave. She is brave. She is bold. She is bold. She is you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Word of Mom Radio here on the Word of Mom Media Network. I'm your host, Dori DeCarlo, and you know we are here week after week, show after show, breaking those myths that mompreneurs and business women, especially those of us building our businesses from home, that we're just dabbling in between bake sales and getting our nails done. We're not. We are smart, we are savvy, and we are sharing the wisdom of women in business and in life. And I'm looking forward to bringing today's guest into our author's alley. Mary Boone's book research has taken her places many people have never been. Chest deep in the Union River to count salmon, inside a cricket barn, and perhaps, most daring of all, the front row of a Justin Bieber concert surrounded by screaming teens. Mary has written 70 plus nonfiction books for young readers, most recently Pedal Pusher, School of Fish, and Bugs for Breakfast. 2 more books are set for the release in 2026, Flying Feminist and Unfathomable, 20 but wild but true stories of the sea. Mary and her family live in Tacoma, Washington with a stubborn Airedale terrier named Ruthie Bader. Love that name. I could keep going, but I'd rather bring Mary in. So with all that being said, welcome to Word of Mom Radio.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I am really looking forward to sharing your journey. And I have to ask you, what first drew you to writing nonfiction for kids? I know in reading about you, you have a journalism background. Did that help shape the journey?
Oh, for sure. I always envisioned I was going to write Nancy Drew mysteries. I always thought I was going to write the next Junie B. Jones. But it turns out after you're a journalist for a very long time, making things up is difficult. I have worked so hard to relay facts, and I'm really, really great at research that I finally decided to lean into my strengths. And I think part of my initial resistance to nonfiction was that the nonfiction I read when I was growing up was kind of boring. And I didn't want to write those boring books. So I set out to write non-boring nonfiction, and I think I'm succeeding. One little nonfiction book at a time.
And that's how you do it. It's like how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. How do you decide what topics you're going to tackle in your books?
Generally, it needs to be something I'm interested in because a book is a long-term relationship. You're spending so much time on research and writing and revision that it needs to be something I care about. And so that's definitely a factor in deciding what I'm going to write about. Also, how can I make this relatable to kids? Is this something kids would also care about, or is this just something a middle-aged woman in Tacoma, Washington cares about? So especially if there is something that, as I'm doing research, I just can't wait to tell my friends and family about some fact I've uncovered, then I think those same facts often catch kids' attention, and I can't wait to share them.
So that's what makes it kid-worthy for you?
I think so, especially when I can figure out a way to put it in terms that they understand. For example, when I wrote Bugs for Breakfast, I had no intention of ever eating insects, let me tell you. This is all about entomophagy, which is the practice of eating insects. I went on a trip to Vietnam. I ate bugs. I came home and thought I never need to do that again. That was just something I did, check it off my list. But that sense of curiosity, like why are they eating bugs and where else are they eating bugs and how long are they eating bugs? I know there are kids out there who are equally as curious as I am, and I want to answer those questions, get them thinking about additional questions. And if the kid's not curious, I want to maybe turn on that switch and get them to start wondering about the world around them.
I have to say that when my daughter was in Cambodia and Vietnam, she backpacked across that whole part of the world for almost 5 months, and fried crickets were her favorite.
Yeah, I think crickets, they call it the gateway bug, but yeah, crickets And crickets there are a lot larger than crickets being raised for food here in the United States. But, eating one little bug kebab, led me on this trail of research.
It's so funny because I remember her saying that. I'm looking at all these bugs, Mom, and they just have it's a whole foray of bugs. And then I said, all right, when in Rome, do as the Romans. And she goes, and crickets are really my favorite. I was like, well, it's good to know that you found your favorite bug because, and again, I know when you are on survival trails, the first thing they tell you, ants have a lot of protein and stuff like that. So I remember my son one time dropped his lollipop in a pile of ants. And in the 2 seconds before I could grab it, he just had that thing in his mouth and there he was. And that's all I kept saying to myself. Okay, a lot of protein. I'll pick the bugs out of his teeth.
It's one of the things that they teach, the military about survival, or if you're taken prisoner or you're left out on a hike somewhere, is which bugs are edible and which aren't, and how to play it safe out there if you don't know for sure.
It's really crazy, but it's true. As a reader, because I'm such an avid reader, nonfiction can really be tricky.
Yes.
And finding that way to balance accuracy and storytelling, because like you said, as we were growing, a lot of it was just boring. So how have you been able to adapt this to keep kids engaged in the stories?
Oh, wow. That's such a great question. And I hope that I'm doing it because I focus as I'm doing research on the wow facts, the things I can't wait to tell other people. And I keep post-it notes that I then want to make sure that I get into my books as I'm writing them. But I always ask myself, why would this matter to a kid? Or what would fourth grade Mary have found fascinating about this? The new book I just researched about the oceans, there's a whole story in it about concrete ships. Now, fourth grade Mary would have had a hard time figuring out why concrete was a good material for ships, why it was necessary, but I also would have wanted to know, how did they make it float? Because every time I've seen a concrete block thrown in the ocean, it just sinks to the bottom. So just trying to figure out what their questions are going to be, anticipate, and then present it in an interesting, relatable way. I try to be conversational and like I said, anticipate their questions.
In looking back at things that you've written, Mary, are there some of those wow facts that still stick with you that, wow, I can't believe this or that?
Sure. I grew up on a farm, so I thought I knew all about traditional farming. But when I was researching bugs for breakfast, one of the issues related to eating insects is that they're so much more sustainable than traditional proteins. So especially when I go talk to kids in schools, I always ask, does anybody here like a cheeseburger or a hamburger? And all their hands go up, or a lot of them. And then I ask them to guess, how much water do you think it takes to raise 1 pound of beef? 1 pound of beef. Do you have any idea?
Not a clue.
1,800 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of beef. It was a fact I didn't even believe because, like I said, I had a farming background. I grew up on a farm in Iowa. But we have to remember, we're feeding and watering that cow for 18 months before it's taken to market. It's got to eat and drink every single day. And then we're not eating the entire cow. You're not eating its hooves, its hide, its head, its tail. You're only eating a certain percentage of that cow. So when you figure out the water usage to produce a pound of beef, it's 1,800 gallons. And if you're producing a pound of cricket powder or cricket protein, it takes 1 gallon. Same protein levels in each of those foods, but the water required to produce each is so vastly different. I live in Washington, and initially kids are like, oh, we have all the water you can, it rains here all the time. Well, it doesn't rain here all the time. And there are droughts all over this country, all over the world. And we've got to start thinking about proteins that maybe require less water, less resources to produce. So that when I start talking to kids on that level, a lot of times adults will be like, oh, there'll be water. But kids are really into the environment and they want to save this planet. And good for them, because a lot of adults, we've made a mess of things. We need them to fix it. So they're very tuned into that. That's just one wow fact that I still think about all the time.
All right, here's my question. How do you get people to go, cricket protein would be much better for me to be adding to my things? You know, that's where I'm seeing that big wall to climb.
Oh, sure, for sure. And if not cricket, so there are a couple of answers to that. One, when I do presentations, I always take bugs for people to try. I have jars of roasted bugs that they can try. But I also always make cricket cookies, and I make a mean cricket cookie. And I make cricket cookies, and then I make cookies that don't have crickets in them. Ground up, it's cricket protein, so you can't see any legs or anything. And I ask them if they can tell the difference. And they are so shocked that they can't tell the difference. I usually have them vote, which one do you think had cricket protein in it? 9 times out of 10, they're wrong. They're just wrong. They cannot taste the difference. So getting them just to try it in a cookie is a good first step. But then telling them if they're not going to try crickets, then what? We've got to start thinking about alternative sources of protein. Is it going to be kelp? Is it going to be lab-raised meats? What are we going to do to feed our growing population? So I just want to get people, I don't necessarily need people to start eating crickets, but I need them to start thinking about what the alternatives could be.
Lab-raised meat. It's so funny. We were just talking about it the other day, that when we were growing up, we did not have to worry about genetically modified foods. We didn't have to worry about them injecting our chicken and things like that to make them bigger. It's always amazing to me now how careful you need to be. Reading labels matter, because the stuff that my feeling is, if I can't just go and buy it, then I shouldn't have it. Like gargum. People don't realize that gargum is just a thickener. And it's a thickener that you can use, especially if you have a gluten intolerance. And it's something you can buy on the shelf. But there's a lot of stuff in our food that you can't, because it's modified and created. Again, even something creative like this, being able to look at alternatives, because let's face it, we're just such an indulgent country.
We are. Well, and I love to talk about to kids who, by the way, when I do school presentations, I usually will say to the principal, at the end, I'd love to have some kids come up and try insects. And the principal will almost always say, well, we can do that, but nobody's going to want to. And at the end of every presentation, when I ask, about 3/4 of the hands go up in the air, and we have a hard time choosing who gets to do it. So kids are really, really open to trying new things. I have found that girls are generally more daring than boys, and then the boys become more daring when they see how open the girls are. But I just love to get them thinking about, if they're not going to eat crickets, could they be the person who comes up with alternatives? Living here in Washington State, we've got the world's largest kelp farm, and kelp is a great source of protein. So maybe that's going to be it. I don't know. Or thinking about using more insect protein in the foods we feed our pets. Because while you and I might only eat crickets once a week, our pets eat the same thing every single day. There are some cricket-based dog foods and cat foods out there, but could there be more? So, all the questions. I just want to get people thinking and wondering. That's my mission.
On that note, think of what Mary's talking about, because it really is just raising the questions and opening your mind. We're going to take a quick break. Thank you to the people that are behind our show, and we'll be back here in just a moment on Word of Mom Radio. She is brave, she is bold, she is you, and we want to tell your story. Are you ready to share your journey with us on Word of Mom Radio? Go to wordofmomradio.com and register as a guest. We want to tell your story because when you win, we all win.
In 2017, Unsilenced Voices was formed to help survivors of domestic abuse and gender-based violence worldwide. The organization currently serves Sierra Leone, Rwanda, Ghana, and the USA. In 2022, Unsilenced Voices gifted over $33,000 to survivors in the USA, and in Sierra Leone, there are over 26 young girls who have been rescued from sex trafficking and domestic abuse and now going through vocational training school in order to better their lives. We need your help. Donations are critical in order for us to continue our work. We also need volunteers to help with research and development. Please visit unsilencedvoices.org for more information.
And we're back here on Word of Mom Radio. We are talking with author Mary Boone, and I am loving, kids are not only the future, but they are so clear on what adults should be doing so much more often than the adults are. I remember my son, Dan, who's now a dad, when he was 5.5, and we were standing on a step. He was waiting for his school bus, and this girl was smoking a cigarette. And while there was this big sand bowl next to her for them, she took it and flicked it in the air onto the ground. And my son watched the arc. He looked at me and he goes, "Cigarette smokers, they think the world is an ashtray." And then looked at her and goes, "You're littering my world, right?" She walked down the stairs. She picked up the butt. She put it in the thing. And I looked at her. I said, "Nothing like getting put in your place by a 5-year-old. But
Exactly.
It's true. It is their world. And they are so cognizant about recycling and everything else. Also, what you said about the girls are more adventuresome. I have a 5-year-old granddaughter and a 7-year-old grandson. Trust me, Edie would be eating that cricket first, and then Danny would do it because Edie did it.
The pressure, yes.
I absolutely know, because she is somebody who I bet she's already eaten a cricket. I would be surprised if she hadn't. I want to know from you, how do you hope kids feel when they read your books? I mean, I know you're opening up those conversations when you get to speak to them, but what do you want them to come away with when they've got it in their hand?
I really want them to think, what else? What else? What could I do? How could my family do this? Or I want them, they're not all books about bugs. I wrote this book, School of Fish, which is all about a program where schools are given fertilized eggs of either salmon or trout or sunfish, and the kids get to raise them. And I want them to look at a book like this and think, citizen science is pretty cool. I want to do that. If this person did this, why can't I? If they broke this barrier, what barrier is out there for me to break? I think I just want them to keep thinking and dreaming. And a lot of times kids will say to me, I've heard this a lot, "There's nothing new for me to invent. Everything's been done." And I think, oh my gosh, that is so not true. I've written books about the first woman to build and fly her own airplane, the first woman to ride a bike around the world. And they're like, all the firsts have been done. Oh, no, they haven't. Go out there and figure out what your thing is. And even if it's been done, figure out a way to do it better or bigger. I just want it to open their minds. So even if I don't get to talk to them, I want the books to talk to them for me, and just put this little idea in the back of their head that their world is bigger than wherever they are and whatever they're doing at that time.
Do you see changes or trends in children's nonfiction today?
For sure. Like I said in the beginning, I think that when I was a kid, when we were kids, it was just pretty straightforward. These are the facts. Here's the timeline. But now we get to weave stories. They're way more narrative driven. We find you don't have to, if you write a biography of someone, it doesn't have to start at their birth and end at their death. It can focus on one exciting aspect of their life and tell it as a story, so that a lot of times, I love this story. This is the story of Annie Londonderry. Her real name is Annie Cohen Kopchowski, but she sold her naming rights. marketing far before anybody was marketing, when she rode a bike around the world. And a lot of times, because this book is so narrative, I will finish reading it and kids will say, "Is that real?" So it doesn't read like those old-timey biographies that we grew up with, or I grew up with. It reads like a story. I want it to be as much like fiction, but better because it's real.
You got the Unfathomable 20 Wild but True Stories of the Sea coming out next year. Any
Yes.
facts that you've learned as you were researching it?
Oh, so many facts. But the thing that got me thinking about this book in the first place is, like I said, I grew up in Iowa, far from any ocean, about as far from an ocean as you can get. But I now live in Tacoma, Washington. And when I moved here, people started talking about octopus wrestling. Octopus wrestling. And I thought, certainly that's not real. Oh, it was. The World Octopus Wrestling Championships were held in Tacoma, Washington in the 1950s and 60s. The wide world of sports would come and broadcast, which still baffles me because it all happened underwater and there weren't really great underwater cameras at the time. But thousands of people would gather. Boeing sponsored teams. Teams of 3 divers would go down to the water near the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. They would gather giant Pacific octopus and they would haul them back up, and whichever team had the largest octopus would win this championship. When I heard this story, my mind was kind of blown because we now know how really smart octopus are. And that was perhaps not the kindest thing to do to those octopus, but that's what hooked me. So that's one of the just wow stories that's in here. I got to interview a man who was swallowed by a whale for real and lived to tell the story. A lobster fisherman he's an old-timey lobster fisherman who actually dives down to grab the lobsters. He's not doing that anymore, but he did get not swallowed by a whale, taken into a whale's mouth, had no idea where he was, and then thankfully got spit back out by the whale, and lived to tell the tale. So just stories like that I think kids are going to have their minds blown a little bit, but also think about all that's out there, all that's left to be discovered. The oceans, talk about places that there's a lot to be discovered. There's a lot out there.
I'm laughing about the lobster because my kids go to Maine every summer, and my granddaughter, this is now 2 summers ago, so she was 3. And I said to her, "Did you have lobster?" And she's looking at me. She's like, "Mimi, those lobsters could eat me. They have claws that go chomp, chomp, chomp." I said, "I know." She goes, "You know what I did?" I said, "What?" She goes, "I ate that claw." With this look on her face, like, ah,
Yeah.
so funny. But again, things like that. The sea holds so much.
So much when we see the top, few inches. I learned to swim as an adult, and when I started doing open water swims, I was like, I don't know what's down there. And I remember my swim teacher saying, you only need the top 18 inches. And then I thought, yeah, but what is down in those miles and miles below me? A lot of us, we have no idea. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing just to think about. So
I have the bite on my foot that's still healing from 3 weeks ago when I was down in Jones Beach on Long Island, walking along, and all of a sudden, ow, big crab bit me. I had a small crab bite me, and it just kind of, nothing. But then I got a big one and didn't even realize it until I came out. It just scraped the skin long enough that a scab formed to close it up. But for days, I'm like, is this a scab or did it stick something in me?
Oh,
you know what? I stepped on him. I deserve to get bit. I should have been swimming instead of walking. But yeah, you don't know what is lurking. So as we close this all out, Mary, because we could just keep talking forever on this. I love books. What do you want to leave our listeners with, and how may they reach out to you?
Assuming I'm talking to a lot of parents out there, sorry, that was Ruth Bader making a big yawn.
Your Word of Mom Radio pet and kid cameos are always welcome.
I just want to encourage parents to encourage their kids to be readers and maybe think about, I just led a day camp where there were so many kids who didn't even know how to do imaginary play because their only imagination, they had to be characters in video games. They didn't know how to do real play anymore. So maybe less screen time, more book time, more just free time to think and wonder and ask questions. So that's what I'd like to leave people with. A weekly trip to the library is free and so eye-opening for kids. Let them choose what they want to read. They may not get through all of them. I know it hurts to read the same book over and over and over, but if that's what a child is interested in, just nourish that interest and answer those questions that seem like they're never going to end. And if people want to reach out to me, they can do that through my website. It's www.boonewrites, like with a pencil, WRITES.com.
All of Mary's links are going to be live on wordofmomradio.com, including links to her books. I so encourage you. Children learn by what you share with them. Read to them even when they are infants. Start reading. Doesn't matter that they don't understand. It doesn't matter that they're not attending the book. It's immaterial. Keep reading to them. Create the readers that are going to shape this world. And so, Mary, I thank you so much for taking the time to come and share your journey with us. Come back next year when The Flying Feminist and Unfathomable come out. And let's share what is happening as they are getting out there to kids all over. So again,
I would love to. I so appreciate you taking the time to talk to me because I do think readers are leaders and we need more of them. So
right on. And for all of you tuning in, thanks so much. We're going to close out with our fabulous theme song from Smith Sisters and the Sunday Drivers. So till next time, this is Dori DeCarlo saying go out and create a marvelous you. Bye for now.
She is sure, she is sure, she is strong, she is strong, she is true, she is true. She is brave, she is brave, she is bold, she is bold, she is you, she is you, she is you, she is you. She is sure, she is sure, she is strong, she is strong, she is true, she is true. She is brave, she is brave, she is bold, she is bold, she is you, she is you, she is you, she is you. Sure of herself, yeah, she takes care of biz, powerful and strong. Yeah, she knows who she is, has integrity, woman strong and true. You know her by name, see this woman is you. She is sure, she is sure, she is strong, she is strong, she is true, she is true. She is brave, she is brave, she is bold, she is bold, she is you, she is you, she is you, she is you. She is sure, she is sure, she is strong, she is strong, she is true, she is true. She is brave, she is brave, she is bold, she is bold, she is you, she is you, she is you, she is you. Adds value and hope, has proved to be brave. See, it's never too late, never time to behave. Reaching for dreams, doesn't matter the age. Believes in herself, unleashed from her cage. She is sure, she is sure, she is strong, she is strong, she is true, she is true. She is brave, she is brave, she is bold, she is bold, she is you, she is you, she is you, she is you. She is sure, she is sure, she is strong, she is strong, she is true.